Everyone keeps telling you to travel more. Your Instagram feed is drowning in passport stamps and airport selfies. Your friends won't shut up about their weekend in Barcelona. And you're sitting there thinking, I genuinely do not care. You have the money. You have the time off. Yet the thought of booking a flight makes you want to crawl into bed and never leave. And as it turns out, neurobiology reveals a different story. You aren't the problem. Your brain might actually be protecting something most travelers are desperately trying to find. Look, if you clicked on this video, you've probably been called boring, unambitious. Someone's definitely said you're wasting your youth or not living life to the fullest. And I need you to hear this. Those people are measuring your life with their ruler. In 2019, a major meta-analysis on well-being explored the lives of people who rarely traveled. It found that for many, staying put wasn't a sign of missing out. It was a sign of high life satisfaction. These weren't people settling. They weren't depressed homebodies white-knuckling through existence. They were genuinely thriving. Lower stress hormones, stronger community ties, a clearer sense of purpose. The science is pretty clear. The problem isn't that you don't travel. The problem is that everyone assumes travel is the only path to a meaningful life. Your brain runs on a different operating system than people who love travel, and it comes down to one neurotransmitter, dopamine. Specifically, how sensitive your brain is to novelty. When someone with high novelty-seeking walks into a new city, their dopamine system floods with reward signals. New restaurant? Hit of dopamine. Foreign language? Another hit. Getting lost in a strange neighborhood. For them, that's exhilarating. But if you have low novelty-seeking wiring, that same experience isn't rewarding. It's depleting. Your brain doesn't interpret new as exciting. It interprets it as work. Every unfamiliar environment means your nervous system has to reorient, recalibrate, relearn where everything is. And while high novelty seekers get energized by that challenge, your system says, this is exhausting and I'd like to go home now. It's not anxiety. It's not fear. It's just neurological efficiency. You've optimized your life for depth, and travel forces you into constant shallow mode. Here's what nobody tells you. Your brain is also likely wired for something psychologists call environmental mastery. You get dopamine hits from completely different sources, mastering a skill in your own space, deepening relationships with people you see regularly, building routines that actually work. While a traveler gets one dopamine hit from trying a new restaurant, you get sustained dopamine from perfecting your morning coffee ritual for 6 months. Neither is better, but one gets celebrated and the other gets called boring. We need to talk about why travel became a moral imperative. In the last 20 years, Western culture turned travel into a personality trait. It's not just something people do anymore, it's who they are. I'm a traveler became code for I'm curious, open-minded, cultured, and living my best life. And if you're not a traveler, the implication is that you're none of those things. But this is historically brand new. 50 years ago, taking one vacation a year to the same lake house was completely normal. Nobody questioned your depth as a human being because you didn't backpack through Southeast Asia. Then social media happened. Then the experience economy happened. And suddenly your worth became tied to how many countries you've collected. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of people who travel obsessively are running from something. I'm not saying everyone, but research from Pico Iyer and other travel philosophers consistently shows that chronic travelers often struggle with a specific thing, being still. They've built their identity around movement, because stopping means confronting whatever they're avoiding at home. You don't have that problem. You've already figured out how to be at peace in one place. That's not a deficit. That's emotional maturity most people spend their whole lives trying to reach. And then there's the guilt. Someone asks where you went on vacation, and you say, nowhere. And you can see it on their face. Pity, confusion, the unspoken question, what's wrong with you? You've probably heard all the greatest hits. You need to get out of your comfort zone. You're missing out on so much. Don't you want to see the world? As if the only world worth seeing is one that requires a boarding pass. This is what psychologists call cultural scripting, The invisible rulebook that tells you what a good life looks like. And right now, the script says, good life equals passport stamps. But here's the thing about cultural scripts. They're written by whoever's loudest, not whoever's right. The entire travel industry is a trillion-dollar machine designed to make you feel incomplete if you're not constantly going somewhere. They've convinced you that the life you're living isn't enough, that home is something to escape from, not something to build. But what if you've already built something worth staying for? What if your life isn't missing anything? Some of the most prolific, creative, fulfilled people in history barely left their hometowns. Emily Dickinson wrote 1,800 poems and left her house maybe 10 times in her final decades. Was she wasting her life? Marcel Proust spent years in a cork-lined room and produced one of the greatest novels ever written. Thoreau wrote Walden about finding infinity in a single pond. These people weren't limited by staying in one place. They were freed by it. Because they weren't spending energy adapting to new environments, they were spending it going deep. Travel gives you width. Staying home gives you depth. And depth is where the real transformation happens. You can't master a craft by dabbling. You can't build a strong community by constantly leaving. You can't know yourself if you're always becoming someone new for a new place. The people who hate travel aren't missing the point of life. They've already found it. Now, before you take this as permission to never challenge yourself again, let's be honest. There's a difference between choosing home because it fulfills you versus hiding at home because you're afraid. If you hate travel because airports give you panic attacks, or because you're terrified of being somewhere you don't speak the language, or because change feels threatening, that's worth looking at. Not because you need to force yourself to travel, but because avoidance shrinks your life. The test is simple. If someone handed you a fully planned, zero-stress trip to a place you've always been mildly curious about, would you feel excited or dread? If it's excitement, you might just hate the logistics of travel, not travel itself. If it's dread, ask yourself why. Is it because you genuinely prefer home, or because the idea of discomfort feels unbearable? One is a preference, the other is a cage, and you deserve to know the difference. So here's what I want you to take from this. If you hate traveling, you're not broken, you're not boring, you're not wasting anything. You're someone who's figured out that fulfillment doesn't require a departure gate. And honestly, in a world that's obsessed with being anywhere but here, choosing to be exactly where you are might be the most rebellious thing you can do. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't owe anyone a travel Instagram. The next time someone asks, when are you going to travel more? Just smile and say, when I find somewhere better than where I already am. Your life isn't on hold. You're not waiting for it to start. This is it. And if you've built a home, a routine, a set of people and places that make you feel alive, congratulations. You've already arrived at the place most travelers are still searching for. If this resonated, you may want to watch the video on people who don't have friends, or why some people hate phone calls, to explore a different psychology.